Being taken seriously is not about authority, position, or power. It is about trust. When people take you seriously, they lean in when you speak. They consider your perspective even when they disagree. They follow through on your ideas because they sense something deeper than words. They sense consistency. And consistency is what builds trust. The challenge is that many people believe seriousness is a matter of tone, titles, or control. They think if they speak louder, dress sharper, or assert themselves harder, respect will naturally follow. But what they often find is the opposite. The more they demand it, the less they receive it. Respect is never granted by demand. It is granted by choice. Others choose whether to take you seriously based on the patterns they observe in your behavior. We remember people not by what they intend, but by what they repeatedly do. A colleague who always follows through becomes the one we trust with responsibility. A leader who listens carefully becomes the one we turn to for perspective. A friend who stays grounded even in chaos becomes the one we seek for reassurance. In all of these cases, the respect they earn is not because of their words, but because of their habits. When you walk into a room, people are already forming impressions. They are silently asking, can I trust this person? Will they follow through? Do they carry themselves in a way that makes me feel confident in their presence? Those impressions are not built in a single moment. They are shaped over time by repeated experiences. Every small action you take is like a deposit into the trust bank. Enough deposits, and people take you seriously without you ever asking. The truth is, seriousness is less about being stern and more about being dependable. Dependability is magnetic. When people know you can be counted on, they stop questioning your words and start aligning with them. They may not always agree with you, but they will respect you enough to hear you out. And that is the foundation of influence. Think about someone in your life you naturally take seriously. Chances are, it's not because of their job title or the car they drive. It's because they've shown you a pattern of behavior that makes you believe in them. They do what they say they'll do. They're present when you need them. They handle challenges without losing perspective. Their seriousness is earned, not staged. On the other hand, think about those who struggle to be taken seriously. Often, it's not that they lack intelligence or good intentions. It's that their actions don't match their words. They promise but don't deliver. They speak but they don't listen. They want trust instantly, but they haven't built the foundation. And so, people hear them but don't follow them. This is why being taken seriously matters, because without it, your ideas, your contributions, and your leadership fall flat. You can be brilliant, but brilliance without trust is ignored. You can be passionate, but passion without consistency is dismissed. The only way people take you seriously is when your daily habits, not your occasional efforts, prove that you are worth their attention. Keeping your word is the simplest promise you can make. Yet it is the most powerful habit for earning credibility. Every time you follow through on what you say, you send a signal: I can be trusted. It may seem small, showing up on time, finishing a task when you said you would, delivering on a commitment. But over time, these small actions create a reputation that speaks louder than any introduction. Most people underestimate how carefully others are observing. They notice when you say you'll call back and never do. They notice when you promise to send an email and it never arrives. They notice when you show excitement about an idea but never follow up. These lapses may feel harmless in the moment, but each one is a withdrawal from the trust account. Over time, those withdrawals leave you with nothing to stand on. On the other hand, people also notice when you deliver. They remember the person who came through when it mattered. They remember the leader who said, I'll be there, and showed up. They remember the colleague who not only promised to help, but actually followed through. That memory builds confidence, and confidence builds respect. It's not the size of the promise that matters. It's the reliability of the person behind it. Keeping your word is not about perfection. Life happens and circumstances change. What people pay attention to is whether you communicate honestly when things shift. Breaking a commitment without explanation erodes trust, but acknowledging the situation and resetting expectations strengthens it. The habit is not about rigid control, it is about consistent honesty. Think about the people you most respect in your life. Chances are, they are people whose words and actions align. You don't have to second guess them. You don't wonder if they'll follow through. Their consistency has removed the uncertainty. And in that reliability, you find yourself leaning on them more, valuing them more, and taking them more seriously. Now think about someone who is constantly unreliable. They may have good intentions, they may even be talented, but their inability to match promises with actions makes you cautious. You may like them, but you hesitate to depend on them. And once hesitation creeps in, trust begins to fade. Without trust, their influence is limited, no matter how passionate they may be. When you keep your word, you do more than complete a task. You create a sense of safety for others. They don't have to chase you down. They don't have to double check. They don't have to wonder. Your reliability removes friction, and that ease makes you someone people gravitate toward. Credibility is not a gift people hand out freely. It is earned through consistent proof that you can be counted on. And nothing proves that more effectively than the habit of keeping your word. Presence is not about walking into a room and demanding attention. It is about walking into a room and commanding respect without saying a word. The way you carry yourself tells people more about you than your words ever could. Your posture, your eye contact, your attentiveness. All of these silent signals create an impression long before you open your mouth. We've all experienced it. Someone enters a meeting and instantly people turn to look. Not because they are loud or flashy, but because they project calm confidence. They stand tall, they listen deeply, and they engage with intention. That presence communicates reliability and assurance, making others feel grounded in their company. Presence is not about arrogance or dominance. In fact, those who try to overpower others with their presence often push people away. True presence is rooted in composure and authenticity. It's the ability to be fully in the moment, to show people through your behavior that they matter, and to create a sense of stability in environments that often feel uncertain. The body always speaks. When you slouch, avoid eye contact, or fidget nervously, people notice. When you are distracted, glancing at your phone or scanning the room instead of engaging, people feel it. These signals may seem subtle, but they communicate volumes about whether you can be trusted, whether you are confident, and whether you should be taken seriously. Contrast that with someone who sits upright, maintains eye contact, and listens with full attention. Their very stillness communicates presence. When they finally speak, people are already prepared to listen. The words carry weight not because they are louder, but because their presence has already established authority. Presence is not about performance, it is about alignment. When your internal state matches your external behavior, people sense authenticity. If you are calm, confident, and engaged inside, that will naturally reflect in your body language. But when there is a disconnect, when you pretend to be confident while carrying insecurity, people feel that tension, even if they can't explain why. Think of the leaders, mentors, or colleagues whose presence made you feel safe and focused. They weren't necessarily the loudest in the room. They were the ones who gave you their full attention, who spoke with calm certainty, and who carried themselves in a way that drew respect naturally. Their presence was their unspoken credibility. Mastering presence is about more than appearance. It's about creating an environment where others feel seen, heard, and valued. It's about showing up fully, not halfway. And when people experience that kind of presence, they don't just listen to your words, they believe them. Listening with intent is not about waiting for your turn to speak. It is about genuinely seeking to understand. When people feel heard, they feel valued. And when they feel value, they respect the one who gave them that space. This habit turns everyday conversations into opportunities to build trust and deepen influence. Most of us underestimate how powerful listening can be. We assume respect comes from how well we argue or how clearly we present our ideas. But more often, respect is built in the quiet moments when someone feels that we are fully present with them. People rarely remember every word you say, but they will always remember how deeply you listened. Listening with intent requires slowing down. It means silencing the impulse to interrupt, resisting the urge to form your response while the other person is still talking, and instead giving them your complete attention. That kind of focus is rare in a world where distractions are constant, which is why it leaves such a lasting impression. Think about the times you've walked away from a conversation feeling energized and respected. Chances are the other person didn't just nod along, they leaned in, asked thoughtful questions, and reflected your words back to you. That experience created trust because it told you what you have to say matters, and that memory makes you take them seriously every time you see them. On the other hand, we've all been in conversations where the other person's eyes wandered, or they rushed to give advice without really understanding what we were saying. In those moments, it's not just frustrating, it's disrespectful. If they don't care enough to listen, why should we care enough to respect them? The lack of intent in listening chips away at credibility. Listening with intent does not mean you have to agree with everything you hear. It simply means you give others the dignity of being understood. When you take the time to see the world through someone else's eyes, you not only gain insight, but you also earn their respect, even if you eventually disagree. The most influential leaders and communicators know this. They spend more time listening than speaking. They draw people out with thoughtful questions. They allow silence to create space for reflection. They make people feel that their voices matter, and in doing so, they gain loyalty and trust that no speech could ever buy. To listen with intent is to lead with respect. It is to create an experience where people walk away not just thinking you are smart, but knowing that you value them. And that simple act of valuing others is what makes them value in return. Clarity is one of the most underrated forms of influence. When you speak with clarity, people don't just hear your words, they understand your message. And when they understand, they act. Complexity may impress on the surface, but it rarely moves people. Clarity, on the other hand, creates momentum because it removes doubt and builds confidence. We often mistake intelligence for the ability to make things sound complicated. But true intelligence shows up in the ability to take something complex and make it simple. The people we admire most are not those who overwhelm us with jargon, but those who can distill big ideas into words that anyone can grasp. Simplicity is not the absence of depth, it is the evidence of mastery. When you speak with clarity, you give people a gift certainty. In a world where so much is confusing and overwhelming, certainty stands out. Your words become anchors, helping people focus on what matters most. And when people feel anchored, they are more likely to trust your direction and take you seriously. Think of the times you've listened to someone who spoke in circles, filling their sentences with complexity, but leaving you with nothing solid to hold on to. You may nod along politely, but inside you're frustrated and disconnected. Now contrast that with someone who lays out an idea in plain, powerful language. You walk away not just understanding, but remembering. That is the power of clarity. Clarity requires intention. It means choosing words carefully, cutting away what is unnecessary, and focusing on the heart of the message. It means pausing long enough to ensure your point lands, rather than rushing through a flood of words. It means respecting your audience enough to make sure they can follow you, not just admire your vocabulary. This is why some of the greatest leaders are also great communicators. They know that people can only act on what they truly understand. They strip away the noise, focus on the essentials, and speak in a way that resonates. They may not use fancy language, but their words carry weight because they are clear. Speaking with clarity is not about dumbing things down, it is about lifting people up. It is about making sure your ideas are accessible to everyone, not just the few who can keep up with complexity. That accessibility is what makes people trust you, because it shows you care more about being understood than being admired. When you master clarity, your words stop being background noise and start becoming a catalyst. People lean in because they know they will walk away with direction, not confusion. And in that moment, respect is not just earned, it is multiplied. Humility with confidence is one of the rarest and most powerful combinations. Confidence without humility can feel arrogant, while humility without confidence can come across as insecurity. But when the two are balanced, people sense both strength and approachability, and that balance is what earns lasting respect. Confidence is the belief in your abilities, your perspective, and your worth. It allows you to speak with certainty and act with decisiveness. But when confidence turns into dominance, it shuts others out. People may hear you, but they will not feel connected to you. Respect built on intimidation never lasts. Humility, on the other hand, is the acknowledgement that you don't have all the answers. It is the willingness to learn, to listen, and to give credit to others. Yet, when humility is taken too far, it risks being mistaken for self-doubt. If you never stand firmly in what you believe, people struggle to take you seriously. The magic happens when humility and confidence are brought together. When you can say, I believe this strongly, and I'm open to being challenged, you show both conviction and openness. That posture communicates maturity. People feel your strength, but they also feel safe to engage with you. They respect you not just for what you know, but for how you carry it. Think of the leaders or mentors who left the deepest impact on you. Chances are, they weren't the loudest in the room. They were confident enough to lead with vision, but humble enough to admit mistakes. Their strength made you trust them, and their humility made you connect with them. That balance is what made their presence unforgettable. People often underestimate how attractive humility is. In a world where many are quick to prove themselves, the person who is willing to say, I don't know, stands out. Paradoxically, admitting limits doesn't weaken respect, it deepens it. It shows courage, not fragility. It proves you are more interested in truth than in ego. Confidence with humility also creates space for others to shine. Instead of needing to be the smartest person in the room, you lift others up. Instead of speaking over people, you invite them in. Instead of defending your position at all costs, you show the strength to reconsider. And it's in those moments that respect turns into loyalty. When people encounter humility wrapped in confidence, they walk away not just impressed, but inspired. They see someone strong enough to lead and human enough to be real. And in that balance, they find a model of respect worth following. When people begin to take you seriously, something shifts. It's not just about the respect you gain in that moment. It's about the doors that begin to open. Credibility creates opportunities because people want to align themselves with those they trust. Your reputation precedes you, and suddenly, rooms you once struggled to enter start inviting you in. Opportunities are not given to those who simply ask for them. They are given to those who have shown they can be relied upon. When others know your word carries weight, they recommend you, they refer you, and they want you on their team. Your consistency becomes your silent advocate speaking for you even when you're not in the room. Influence deepens in the same way. Influence is not about commanding attention, but about shaping action. And action is only inspired when people believe the person leading them is worth following. When your habits have proven your reliability, your voice naturally carries further, and your ideas are given space to grow. This influence is not loud or forceful, it is steady. People trust your perspective, so they ask for it more often. They lean on your judgment, even in areas where you may not be the technical expert. They follow not because they have to, because they choose to. That choice is the highest form of respect. As influence grows, so does trust. Trust compounds like interest. The more you invest in it through consistent action, the more valuable it becomes over time. One kept promise leads to another. One act of presence builds into a pattern. One moment of humility strengthens the bond. Each layer of trust makes the foundation stronger until it becomes almost unshakable. Trust doesn't just affect how people see you, it affects how people treat you. They give you space to fail and recover because you've proven you won't take advantage of their grace. They share information more freely because they believe you'll use it wisely. They give you chances others may never see because they know you won't squander them. And as trust compounds, the ripple spreads beyond your immediate circle. Your reputation travels. People you've never met have already heard of how you carry yourself. Opportunities arise from places you didn't even know were watching. The respect you've earned in one corner of life begins to unlock doors in another. This is the ripple effect, one habit feeding into another, one act of credibility creating waves of opportunity, influence, and trust that reach further than you could ever predict. It begins small, but once it starts, it grows into something far larger than you alone. Change does not begin with a massive overhaul, it begins with a single step. Too often, people get overwhelmed by the idea of transformation, imagining they need to reinvent themselves overnight. But respect is not built in a day. It is built in the daily choices that compound over time. One habit, practiced consistently, can change the way the world responds to you. Think of the small moments: showing up on time, following through on a promise, giving someone your full attention. These acts may feel minor in the moment, but they accumulate. Each one is a signal to others that you can be trusted, that you are intentional, that you are serious. Over weeks and months, those signals create a reputation far stronger than any single performance ever could. The key is to start where you are. Don't wait until you have mastered every habit. Choose one. Maybe it's keeping your word. Maybe it's listening with intent. Maybe it's speaking with clarity. Focus on practicing it consistently until it becomes part of who you are. Small wins build momentum, and momentum builds confidence. Consistency matters more than intensity. Anyone can show up once with great presence or clarity, but if it's not repeated, it doesn't stick. People respect patterns, not moments. They look for proof over time, not flashes of brilliance. By starting small and staying consistent, you give them the proof they need. There is also power in patience. When you practice a habit long enough, you may not notice the change immediately, but others do. They begin to respond differently. They invite you to deeper conversations. They trust you with bigger responsibilities. They take your ideas more seriously. Their shift in behavior is the evidence of your growth. The beauty of starting small is that it lowers the barrier to action. You don't need perfection. You don't need to master all 5 habits today. You need only to decide what is the one habit I will practice no matter what. That choice, repeated daily, builds the foundation for the rest. Over time, one habit leads to another. The person who learns to keep their word naturally begins to carry themselves with more presence. The one who listens deeply learns to speak with more clarity. The one who practices humility grows in confidence. The habits reinforce one another, creating a cycle that transforms both perception and reality. And so the call is simple: begin. Not tomorrow, not when conditions are perfect, but today. Start with one habit, commit to it fully, and allow it to shape the way others see you. That single decision has the power to shift the trajectory of your influence, your opportunities, and your respect.